Hey, Jackie, I'm Free Real Estate Maven, and right now I am out doing errands. Had a couple of thoughts here in the car. Wanted to do a quick little video on some tips for my sellers who are thinking about selling their house, and I'd like to answer some questions. So, how do you stick out in a good market and a bad market, or a soft market? There's really no bad markets, but soft market is prep. You cannot over prep your house. It's impossible. You cannot over prep it. You can't over clean it. You can't over prep it. You can't over repair it. You just fix what's broken, right? You're not going to replace generally things that are working. Sometimes, like when you get your house on the market and you get it under contract and you get a home inspection, you have like a 20-year-old HVAC system. Sometimes the inspector and or buyer and or agent will say, "Oh, it's defective because it's 20 years old." Well, it's working. So is it defective? It's just old. Can it go out anytime? Absolutely. It could go out anytime at only 5 years. It could go out anytime at only 3 years. It's all about how your maintenance records are. I once sold a house that the guy did twice a year maintenance, had all the records for over 20 years. And that following summer, after my buyers bought the house, it stopped working. However, they did get a home warranty. The guy did keep a home warranty on the house for 20 years. And so when that part broke, they came out and they fixed it for free, and it wasn't a problem. And then my buyer was able to get a few more years out of the unit before he decided to like trash it and just get something more efficient, because although it was working, it wasn't really efficient, but it wasn't a defect because it actually worked when we closed. The question I get a lot is, should I sell as is, or should I really put everything into a house and get as much money as I can? That's only a question that you can answer. A lot of it depends on where the house is, your disposition, where you are financially. Do you have the wherewithal to put money into the house to get the top price? Do you have a desire to sell at the top of the market because you need the extra money for something in particular, or it's just something in you that just wants to get the most money? I always say two people can't save the same dime. So if you sell it as is, you're going to sell it as is. You will be penalized no matter what price you put on the property. If you put it too high, then people aren't going to show up. If you put it too low, people are going to still offer you less than what your list price is. So either way you go, you're going to typically get less than your list price. But if you list way too high, people are going to completely ignore you, because they're now you're competing with houses that are priced at the same as yours but offer way more. So if people are going to buy houses priced the same, offered more than yours, that means you need to offer more value. The first way to offer value to a buyer is in your price. Second is definitely in your condition. And then third is your positioning. What do I mean by positioning? Positioning is how you position your home in the market. So what are the things that you have done with the home that bring value to a buyer? One, aforementioned HVAC system. So if you did have a 20-year-old HVAC system and you wanted to get the most bang for your buck out of your price, you might have to invest in an HVAC system. That's a huge ticket item, which the buyers are going to feel appreciative of. Does it raise your property value? Absolutely not. Does it give them peace of mind in buying a house? Absolutely. If you put two houses side by side, apples to apples, oranges to oranges, and two identical houses on the same street in the same neighborhood, same builder, same age, same everything, and they were identical and across the street from each other, and all the conditions were the same: yard condition, looks, attractiveness, all that, curb appeal, everything, and one had a 20-year-old HVAC system and one had a 6-month-old HVAC system, which one would you think the buyer would be more lean towards? Right? You can answer that yourself. So you got to keep that in mind, but it's all about what you want to do, what you want to offer to the marketplace. So even with a 20-year-old HVAC system, if you have other things in the house that give the home value, your buyer will also make those considerations for those things. So you have a 20-year-old HVAC system, but you got brand new windows. You have a 20-year-old HVAC system, but the house has been professionally cleaned, professionally painted, all new hardwood floors, all new carpet, all new toilets, all new windows, all new appliances, but your HVAC system is old. Well, all those other things outweigh the age of an aged out HVAC system. For most people, they like all the new things, and people might say, okay, well, they obviously had a budget. They were able to get all these other things done. They just weren't able to touch the HVAC system. So they may go ahead and buy because everything else is already done. They don't have to go in and do an HVAC system and carpet and paint and repairs and change out the lighting and do landscaping and clean the gutters and put a new roof. They're not having to do all the other things plus an expensive HVAC system. So my question, to answer that question, it depends on what your level of motivation is, if you should sell as is, or if you should put money into the property to get as much money out of it as possible. That is a you answer. It's a me question, but it's a you answer, right? So you have to decide that for yourself. In a perfect world, even if you're selling a property as is, I always say price it for the condition, but still clean it up. Don't try to sell a house full of junk. Don't sell a house full of stains with carpet, stained carpet and smell cigarettes. But clean it. No one's saying that you have to repair it, but clean it. Clean goes a long way with a buyer. Oh my gosh. Before someone even walks past the threshold of the door, if they get to the door and it has a very odoriferous smell, that's going to turn them off. The house can look spotless, but if it stinks, that's going to turn them off. People reject dirty, right? Even home investors, when they're coming and know they're trying to find a deal, they want to have something they can add value to. They're humans too. They get affected by the smell just like the rest of us. So they're like, "Ooh, okay, all right, this smells like, dead skunk in here. Okay, I'm going to have to spend $5,000 to get the smell out. Okay, so I'm going to ding them $10,000 because I got to spend $5,000. So things like that. Even if you're selling as is, does not mean unclean. As is doesn't mean unrepaired. As is in Georgia means as of the day of closing is what the buyer is willing to accept in that condition. That is as is. They buy an as is. Doesn't mean you need to sell an as is. Okay, there's a slight nuance there. Next thing is like, should I list my house a little bit above the market so that I leave room to negotiate? Everybody does that. So I say don't do that. Price your house with value. So if your house is worth $550,000, price it at $545,000. If everybody else is selling at $550,000, price it at $545,000. People are like, I'm leaving $5,000 on the table. No, you're not. Because if your house is really worth $550,000, your buyer is going to come. You're going to have a competitive little trail of people coming to your house, and they're going to either bid back up to the market value or above it. I promise you. 27 years in the game, I promise you. A lot of people say, okay, well, if I list my house at $550,000 and people are going to come offer me $540,000, they might. That's market to them. Or if I price it at $560,000, maybe I'll come down to $550,000. No, they're going to come back down to $540,000 because the buyer's never going to pay a dime more than what it's worth to them. They never will. They won't even click on the buttons now because we don't sign contracts anymore. Generally, we just do a bunch of clicks to sign. They're not going to click through the screen. They're not going to scroll through their phone to click if it's something that they are not willing to pay for. So price it for the market, price it to sell. This is a market to try to sell. This isn't a market where I'm going to see what I can get and see if buyers come, great. If they don't come, I don't care. No, you want to sell because you're not going to go through the efforts of prepping the house, interviewing agents to come back to re-prep the house based on their observations and suggestions. You're paying money to clean carpets. You're paying money to stretch carpets. You're paying money to cut down trees, overgrowth over the house, cleaning the HVAC or servicing the HVAC system, treating for termites. No one's going to go through all that stuff unless they want to sell. So that whole conversation that sellers often have, well, I don't have to sell. Yeah, you want to sell because you're not going to go through all that. It's kind of like when people, say, oh, I don't have to date anyone. All right, but no, you don't have to date anybody, but you go all out. You got the girls lifted up. You got the weave, the eyelashes. You got all this, the smell good, all this stuff. Well, you're putting yourself on the market. Someone may ask you out for a date. Well, you're not going to go through all that and have strangers come through your house to not sell it. So don't be coy, as some sellers are. I don't want to give away my position. That's the other thing. Tell the agent what you want for the house. Don't be shy about it. If they say, I want to see what your number is, my number may not be your number. The number I'm going to give you is a number that's going to sell, period. It may not be your number you have in mind because a lot of sellers, when they sell a house, they want to pad it for negotiation and the closing costs. Then they want to pad it for what they think they want to use the money for. So if you're going to have, say, $100,000 worth of equity in the house and you want to squeeze in an extra $5,000 because you're like, oh, I can use $5,000 and go on vacation or whatever, you're kind of looking at it the wrong way. The goal ultimately is to get the darn thing sold. And I've had sellers in the past that will squabble over the last $3,000 in negotiation with the buyer, turn the buyer completely off, and then 6 months later, we take a $15,000 price reduction when you could have just gave them the $3,000 raggedy dollars, 6 months before, 5 months before, and then been in your next place paying a mortgage on the house you want to be in instead of the one that you don't want to be in, on top of maintenance issues, because in 6 months the house is going to need something. It's going to need termite work, HVAC work, a plumbing leak, or what. It's going to need something in 6 months that you're going to have to do. Cutting the grass every 2 weeks in the summer, it's going to need something, and you would have already spent that $3,000 in just holding costs than if you were to just said yes back then. But people always want, some of my clients, well, not my clients, but sometimes sellers, when I'm representing the buyer, just have this stronghold because they want the win more than they want the sell, which is kind of strange. So you got to be level-headed when you're selling your house. Don't try to over-process what different scenarios you're going to have with selling a house. Well, if the buyer does this, we're going to do that. If the buyer does this, I think the buyer's going to buy my house. It's going to be a single mom with with 2 kids, or I think it's going to be a single guy because I have a really kick-ass garage in the back. So I know I'm going to sell to a guy. Like, don't do that. You don't know where your buyer's coming from. You have no clue. They're either going to be local or from out of town. That's it. Local, out of town. That's it. Even if they're investors, local or out of town. Out of town buyers, we like the out of town buyers. They don't know the areas as much, and they tend to study an area based on the anecdotal things that they hear about the area online. YouTube videos, reports written about the area. They look at schools. They look at proximities to Atlanta, to the airport, to Alpharetta, to Buckhead. They look at those things. They look from a sky view down on the property. The locals, oh my gosh, the locals are a little bit rougher because they know too much about the area. They'll say, oh, okay, well, I remember when somebody got shot on the corner of 8th and 11th Street, 11th Avenue, and I would never live over there because it's got too bad juju. Well, those aren't your buyers because they oftentimes will know too much. Now, I find that the local move-up buyers are pretty cool because they're just like, look, I want to elevate my lifestyle. Even your local buyers that are downsizing into a house, typically they're downsizing to a much, much smaller house. So they're able to give up a couple things because what they're looking to transition from is having the big, massive 10, 15,000 square foot house. They want to get something that's closer to 3,000 or even down to 2,000 square feet because they're going to be traveling more. So they're not as picky as some of your local buyers who have never bought a house before. They're buying their first house, and I've got buyers that bought their first house in the $600,000 range for the first time, and they just know too much. You know how like you have those coworkers at work, they just graduated from whatever school they went to, and so they just know everything about the job, but they don't really know anything. Sometimes the local buyers are like that. They know everything and everybody and have all the contacts, and their uncle, brother, sister, uncle, grandfather, live down the street. They have the pressures of, I don't want to live near Susie because I don't want her coming to my house every day, but I need to live 15 minutes from my mom, so close but not too close. I don't want to have her just knocking on my door. Like, they have so much more little inner drama kind of going on. The local buyers, where your out-of-state buyers, they don't have all that. They usually come down here. They don't know anybody. They're either down here to be closer to family, or they come down here for a job, or they're coming down here because it's cheap living in Virginia, DMV area, or Hampton Roads area. It's cheaper than Las Vegas. It's cheaper than California. It's cheaper than New York. It's cheaper than Chicago. It's cheaper than a lot of places. So they come here because they're getting a simpler, less, more affordable lifestyle, so that they can, get more for their money, and they want to come, and they have like more of a romantic thoughts on coming down to the South, right? They want to come to the South. They want that experience, things that they hear about. So those are usually like my out-of-state buyers that I run into are kind of like that. But like I said, your locals can be a little stiff on me a little bit because they know too much, right? Or they know everything. And let's see what else. So my other question that I get sometimes is, should I sell to an investor, or should I put it on the market and open it up? That really depends on you. Sometimes people want a quiet sale. I was talking to someone today. They've got a roommate that's going to be convalescent, and so trying to show a house with a convalescing person can be a little bit tough. So they might eventually gear to selling to an investor, but an investor typically is going to ding you 20 to 25% off your price. If you do with some of the big iBuyers, they'll come in and give you your price, and then they discount your fees considerably. They have holding fees and management fees and handling fees and repair budget fees. So you end up really roughly giving about 20% of your equity. But you have the convenience of sale. Typically they're going to buy cash. Typically they close in 21 days or less. And then you're out of the house, but you just have to be able to give up some equity. So if you're looking at let's call it a $200,000 house, just for easy numbers, you're looking at giving up $40,000 for the convenience of not showing your house. So it's going to cost you. They're not going to give you what it's worth. They just can't, because it's not going to fit the budget model. They're not going to be profitable, because all they're going to do is turn around and sell the house. They're going to fix it up how they're going to do it and put it right back on the market. So it depends on what you're looking for. If the money is a thing that you need, then go ahead and, do all the prep, do all the things, get a realtor, get it on the market, and get it just mass mediated out so you can get the highest and best buyer, highest and best that the buyer is willing to pay. But if you need the speed and you just need to get out and you don't want to do any repairs, you don't want to do any showings, no open houses, no nothing, then sell to an investor and then, take that $40,000 hit. If you're looking at, if you're in the $500,000 range and you just want to get out, you don't want to get on the market, do showings, open house, none of those things, you're going to give up, let's call it 10%, you're going to be giving up $100,000, right, to sell quickly. So you have to be willing. Your need for speed has to be more value to you than the $100,000 hit that you're going to take to do it. So you have to just answer that question for yourself. What makes sense for you? Should I go with a realtor, or should I go with an investor? Only you can answer that question. So I'm here to help guide and direct you as to what's going to work for you, whether if you're going to sell to an investor, which I have a whole list of investors that buy cash, but they do ding you. They will. Or we can go live on the market, do all the things we need to do, position the house properly, price, condition, and position is super important. And then the marketing is the thing that lifts everything and gets it out into the ethos so that you can get the most money possible. And then the last thing I'd say is stop holding on to a number. A lot of people get stuck to a number than committing to sell their house. I kind of touched on it briefly. They want the win more than they want the sell. Don't be that person. Get your house sold. Get that noose from around your neck and move on down the street. Get something else. The more that you try to hold on to these properties, the more money it's going to cost you in the long run. It is what it is. And the longer you sit, the less money you get. Think of selling your house like selling a car. Like you go to the car lot, and if the car's been out on the car lot for 120 days, are you going to offer them what they're asking? No, you're going to negotiate. Now, if the car was on the lot for only a day or two, you're more inclined to offer them what they want. If you really want that car, you're like, I might wait, I'm going to see what they drop the price. They might drop the price once or twice every 30-day period that it's out, or every quarter that it's out. But after a while, everybody else is going to start looking at it too and discounting it. So, that's all I got for you right now. That's all the thoughts I had. So if I could help you buy, sell, or invest in the Atlanta market, let me know. I would love to talk to you about it and see what works for you and what's best for you. And I can let you know my fees and how long things can take to sell and what you should do and all that good stuff. So 27 years of experience, be in your corner. So 678-929-8330 is my phone number, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.